At a sharp bend on the road to Dromkeen, about 45 Irish Republican Army volunteers held their breath. Hidden behind low stone walls and in the damp ditches of a cold February afternoon, they clutched their rifles and waited. They were watching as a convoy of police lorries rumbled towards them, carrying men who represented the authority of the British Crown in Ireland. In moments, these rebels were about to trigger one of the most vicious and personal encounters of the Irish War of Independence. But for two of the policemen in that convoy, the savage blast of the ambush wouldn't be their end. A far grimmer and more controversial fate was waiting for them after the fighting was over. By February 1921, Ireland was a nation consumed by a brutal, intimate war. The Irish War of Independence, a guerrilla conflict between the IRA and British Crown forces, had entered its most violent phase. This wasn't a war of grand armies and sweeping battlefields. It was a war of shadows and secrets, of lightning-fast raids and devastating ambushes, fought on country roads, in muddy fields, and on the doorsteps of ordinary homes. In County Limerick, the conflict was especially intense. The land was divided not by front lines, but by loyalty, fear, and a burning desire for freedom. The IRA's strategy, shaped by leaders like Michael Collins, was simple: make the country ungovernable for the British. This meant targeting the eyes and ears of the Crown, the Royal Irish Constabulary, or RIC. For decades, the RIC had been a local police force, made up mostly of Irishmen. But as the war escalated, they found themselves on the front line, seen by Republicans not as countrymen, but as agents of an occupying power. To crush the rebellion, Britain flooded Ireland with new recruits, most famously the Black and Tans, a force of ex-soldiers known for their brutal reprisals. These men, with their mix-and-match uniforms of dark police green and army khaki, became symbols of British oppression. They were backed by the Auxiliaries, an elite paramilitary unit of former officers. Together, the RIC, the Tans, and the Auxies were the face of British rule, and the primary targets of the IRA. Limerick was a hotbed of Republican activity, but the local IRA had faced recent setbacks. Richard O'Connell, the fiery commander of the Mid-Limerick Brigade's flying column, was seething. A flying column was the IRA's answer to a conventional army, a small, mobile unit of dedicated guerrilla fighters who lived on the run, sheltered by sympathetic locals. They were the tip of the spear. But O'Connell's column had just lost a major arms dump to a police raid. In a war where every rifle was precious, this was a catastrophe. The loss of weapons was a disaster, but the blow to their pride was even worse. O'Connell was determined to strike back, rearm his men, and restore the brigade's fearsome reputation. His chance came from some sharp intelligence work. A local volunteer, John Purcell, had been watching the police patrols for months and noticed a fatal pattern. On the first Thursday of every month, 2 lorries traveled the 11 miles from Palace Green to Fedamore to deliver the payroll. They used the same route every time. In a guerrilla war, a routine like that was a death warrant. O'Connell knew this was it. But an ambush this big needed more men than his column had. He reached out to Don Chad O'Hannigan, commander of the neighboring East Limerick Brigade's flying column. O'Hannigan was a respected and brilliant tactician, known for his meticulous planning and cool head. Some even credit him as one of the first commanders to use the flying column system that Collins later made famous. The two commanders agreed to a joint operation. Together, their forces would number around 45 riflemen, a formidable concentration of IRA strength. This wasn't going to be a minor skirmish. It was a major engagement, designed to wipe out the patrol and seize its weapons. The location they chose was just as critical as the intel. They picked a stretch of road near Dromkeen, a sharp, right-hand bend right next to the grounds of Dromkeen House. It was a textbook ambush position, a natural killing ground. Low stone walls flanked the road, providing perfect cover. Beyond the walls were fields and ditches, offering clear lines of fire and secure escape routes. O'Hannigan took overall command, personally surveying the site and laying out the plan with military precision. He divided his men into sections, placing them on both sides of the road, behind the stone walls, in the outbuildings of nearby farms, and in a ruined church overlooking the road. This created a kill zone several hundred yards long, ensuring the convoy would be caught in a devastating crossfire. Barricades were ready to be dragged into place to block any escape. To give warning, O'Hannigan posted lookouts. Among them was Maurice Meade, a man with a remarkable history. Meade was a former British soldier captured by the Germans in World War I. While a POW, he was recruited into Roger Casement's Irish Brigade, a failed German effort to form a unit to fight the British. After the war, he returned to Ireland and joined the IRA, bringing his military experience with him. His journey from a British uniform to an IRA rifle pit said everything about the passions of the time. On this day, his job was simple: watch the road and give the signal. The plan was set for the afternoon of Thursday, February 3, 1921. As the cold winter light began to fade, the men of the East and Mid-Limerick brigades moved into position. They checked their motley collection of weapons, Lee Enfields, shotguns, a few Mausers, and settled in behind the damp stone walls. The air was thick with the tension of men about to risk everything, waiting for the rumble of engines that would signal the start of the battle. The wait was the hardest part. For the men hidden along the Dromkeen road, every minute felt like an hour. They lay in the cold, knuckles white on their weapons, eyes fixed on the bend. The plan was detailed, but in the chaos of a firefight, plans could disappear in a second. Everything hinged on surprise, discipline, and nerve. Don Chad O'Hannigan moved between his men, offering quiet words of instruction, his calm presence a steadying force. Richard O'Connell, still stinging from his brigade's recent losses, waited with grim focus. This had to work. Then they heard it. A low rumble, growing steadily louder. The lookouts, including Maurice Meade, gave the signal. 2 Crossley tender lorries were coming, and they were closer together than the IRA had expected, a small detail with big consequences. In the lead lorry were 13 members of the RIC and the Black and Tans. At the wheel was Constable Cox, with the convoy's commander, District Inspector Adam Sanson, beside him. Both men, unusually, were wearing civilian clothes. In the back of the lorries, their comrades sat exposed to the elements, weary and looking forward to getting back to their barracks. They were driving straight into a trap. As the first lorry rounded the bend, the quiet afternoon exploded. The IRA plan was to let both lorries enter the kill zone, but their close proximity forced a change. To stop the second lorry from escaping, the IRA section near the old church opened fire on it first. The shattering volley of rifle fire ripped through the air. Michael Hennessy, a volunteer, later claimed his first shot killed the driver of the second lorry, Constable Sidney Millen. Whether it was his shot or another, the effect was instant. The driver slumped over the wheel, and the lorry coasted to a halt. The men in the back were now sitting ducks, caught in a murderous crossfire from both sides of the road. Hearing the shots, the driver of the lead lorry, Constable Cox, slammed on the accelerator, trying to punch through the ambush. But O'Hannigan had planned for that. As the lorry raced forward, it sped towards the barricade blocking the road ahead. Cox swerved violently to avoid it, lost control, and the heavy truck slewed into a ditch and overturned, throwing its occupants everywhere. The battle became pure chaos. For the policemen, it was a nightmare. They were trapped, pinned down with almost no cover, while the IRA fired from concealed positions. The low stone walls lining the road became the dividing line between life and death. The air was thick with the crack of rifles, the shouts of men, and the smell of cordite. Grenades were thrown into the first lorry, killing the men inside almost instantly. The plan was working with terrifying efficiency. The police, despite their training, couldn't put up much of a fight. Some scrambled for cover under their crippled vehicles, but the IRA riflemen were relentless. Two volunteers, Johnny Vaughan and Sean Carroll, reportedly moved onto the road itself to get better firing angles, taking out two constables who were trying to return fire from under the second lorry. The main firefight was shockingly brief. Most accounts say it lasted no more than 10 minutes. But in those 10 minutes, the road was turned into a slaughterhouse. In the middle of the carnage, two men got away. District Inspector Sanson and his driver, Constable Cox, had been thrown clear when their lorry overturned. Critically, they were both in civilian clothes. As they scrambled up and ran through a field, O'Hannigan gave the order to hold fire. The IRA had orders to avoid killing civilians, who were sometimes used by Crown forces as human shields. That momentary hesitation was all Sanson and Cox needed. By the time the volunteers realized the fleeing men were police, they had vanished into the darkness. Their escape would later be scorned by some volunteers as cowardice, an officer abandoning his men. Back on the road, the firing died down. As an eerie silence fell, broken only by the groans of the wounded, the volunteers cautiously emerged. The scene was one of utter devastation. 9 policemen lay dead or dying. The ambush had been a stunning, brutal success. The IRA men quickly got to work, collecting the spoils, Lee Enfield rifles, Webley revolvers, and ammunition. The victory was almost total. The IRA had suffered just one casualty, Liam Hayes, who had part of his thumb and a finger shot off, likely from friendly fire in the crossfire. But the encounter wasn't over. As the volunteers surveyed the aftermath, they found that at least 2 policemen were still alive and had been captured. The names usually cited are Constable Samuel Adams and Constable Arthur Pierce or Henry Smith, though accounts differ. With the scene under their control, the IRA commanders faced a terrible decision. The war had reached a new level of brutality. The British had recently announced a policy of executing any armed IRA volunteer they captured. Just a few weeks earlier, the first one had been carried out. Many in the IRA believed the only response was to do the same. They had asked their leadership in Dublin for guidance on prisoners but had received no reply. Now, at Dromkeen, theory had become a bloody reality. The commanders on the ground had to choose. What were they going to do with their prisoners? As the adrenaline wore off, a cold reality set in for Don Chad O'Hannigan and his men. They had prisoners of war. The British policy of executing captured volunteers had poisoned everything, stripping away any unwritten rules of conflict. To men like General Tom Barry of the Cork Brigade, the logic was simple and brutal. They have gone down into the mire to destroy us and our nation, and down after them we had to go. On that roadside at Dromkeen, this grim philosophy was about to be put into practice. According to several witness statements from volunteers, a makeshift vote was held on the fate of the captured policemen. The details are debated, but the outcome was a decision in favor of execution. Some accounts claim O'Hannigan had standing orders to shoot all captured police and TANs, but others suggest the choice was made on the spot, a direct, furious response to British policy. One volunteer later remembered hearing a policeman plead for his life, only for O'Hannigan to reply, "Dead men tell no tales." The task of carrying out the sentence reportedly fell to Maurice Meade. The former British soldier, now a committed IRA man, was ordered to execute the prisoners. According to his own witness statement, O'Hannigan asked him, "Hey Maurice, will you shoot one of them?" Meade agreed. He took one of the captured constables down the road and shot him. Another volunteer was then tasked with executing the second prisoner but couldn't go through with it. Meade, unflinching, took the second man and executed him as well. These were not deaths in the heat of battle. They were cold-blooded killings. The Dromkeen Ambush, already bloody, had ended with an act that would mark it as one of the most ruthless encounters of the war. With the executions done, the death toll for the Crown forces rose to 11. Having seized a huge cache of arms, the flying columns had to vanish. Retribution would be swift. They melted back into the countryside, splitting up and taking refuge in their network of safe houses. The wounded Liam Hayes was taken to a local nurse, Lily Oregon, of the Women's Council or League of Women. The volunteers disappeared, leaving behind a scene of carnage on the Dromkeen road. The British response wasn't long in coming. When news of the ambush spread, their fury was incandescent. But with the attackers gone, that fury was turned on the local population. This was the era of the official reprisal, a policy of collective punishment. In the following days, Crown forces swept through the area, burning 10 homes and farms to the ground, targeting the families of men suspected of being involved. The family home of the wounded Liam Hayes was one of those torched. It was a strategy of terror, meant to break the bond between the people and the flying columns. But it often had the opposite effect, hardening local resolve and deepening the hatred for Crown forces. In military terms, the Dromkeen Ambush was a massive success for the IRA. It was one of the largest and most successful ambushes of the war outside of County Cork, ranked alongside famed attacks like Kilmacle in its devastating toll on Crown forces. It shattered police morale in Limerick, proving that even a heavily armed patrol wasn't safe. The ambush, and others like it, helped convince the British government that a military victory in Ireland was impossible, paving the way for the truce that came just 5 months later. The legacy of Dromkeen is complex, a story of tactical brilliance, ruthless violence, and profound tragedy. It captures the very nature of the war, a conflict fought by ordinary men pushed to extraordinary and often terrible lengths. The 11 policemen who died were a mix of Irishmen and Britons, men like Constable John Joseph Burke from Galway and Black and Tan Samuel Adams from England. The men who lay in wait for them were farmers and labourers, fighting for a cause they believed in with a ferocity born of centuries of history. Today, a memorial marks the site, unveiled in 2009 before a crowd of nearly 2,000 people. The event is remembered not just as an IRA victory, but as one of the bloodiest single episodes in Limerick's history. It's a stark reminder of a time when the roads of Ireland were battlefields, and when a nation at war made hard, cold, and ruthless choices. It's a story of how a small band of rebels won a vicious battle, but it's also a somber reflection on the terrible price of freedom. The Irish War of Independence is filled with incredible stories of strategy, sacrifice, and conflict. If you're fascinated by the guerrilla tactics and pivotal battles that shaped modern Ireland, make sure you subscribe to Emerald Chronicle and hit the notification bell. And let us know in the comments which other battles of the war you'd like to see us cover.